This is how I made the skirt and belt in part 2 of making KDA Ahri. I decided to approach this by looking at it like the base shape is a quarter circle skirt. I then break this down into a side iridescent piece on the left, a main piece in white with a black detail on the front, and a hem that is slightly lifted on the right side to accentuate that asymmetrical look. I used the Mood Fabric circle skirt calculator to get the radius I needed, and for length, I went back to this skirt from Ahri because this length seemed like a good starting point. I ended up making 2 mock-ups for this because I wasn't happy with how the white piece was falling because of my body shape. First mock-up, I cut the curve off the bottom edge of the pattern to get this lift, but I had to adjust my pattern on the back on the one side and make it slightly longer so my butt was covered like the reference photos. For the left side, I've seen a lot of other cosplays just do a gather at the waist to get the flare, but on these reference images, it seemed more like a pleat to me, so I used this tutorial to learn how to do a box pleat on a circle skirt and came up with this pattern. For my waistband, I used my waist radius and just made a rectangle pattern, adding about 2 inches for Velcro to overlap. Onto fabrics. I think this is called a matte back satin. It's a medium weight with no stretch, so I thought it would fall nicely and not require interfacing. For the black detail, I used this black matte faux leather from my stash with black interfacing, and for the iridescent side detail, this is a crinkle organza that has a purple, green, blue shift depending on the light. Sewing this was generally pretty simple. I wanted to finish all of the hems of each piece before attaching them to the waistband. For the main white piece, I serged all the edges first, then I attached the black detail, doing right side to right side, then top stitched the smallest top stitch I think I've ever done to keep this piece from flipping when I wear it. For the rest of the hem, I folded it over once and did a small top stitch all the way around. For the organza, I watched this tutorial to learn how to do a baby hem and ironed the pleats into place. To attach the waistband, I sewed on Velcro first and did this method where you fold in the seam allowances and then hand sew it to close it and pressing it to clean it up. The last part for the skirt itself was to airbrush this geometric design. I used 5mm tape to try and mimic the stripes as best I could. Then I did a light pink from the bottom hem up and at some of the edges of the shapes for depth, a purple near the waistband, followed by a light blue that came down farther and adding depth to some of those lines with the blue as well. The most satisfying part was the tape removal. I went back in with the light blue to make the white lines less stark. For the belt, I did a duct tape pattern, used 2mm foam and the same fabric as the shorts, adding a couple inches so I could add both Velcro and snaps because I hate when things come undone, so I wanted extra insurance. For the draping parts on the right, I used a leather puncher to make the holes in the belt, a mix of cord clamps and rings to attach the strips of gems I got from AliExpress. For the last belt piece, I'm new to 3D modeling, but thought this would be simple enough to try, so I decided on the measurement I wanted, how to add spots for magnets, printed, sanded, primed, and my favorite part, airbrushing, where I tried to emulate this teal highlight in some of the reference pics to get this colorful finish, allowing me to easily attach this to the belt with magnets. Finally, the skirt and belt are done, and I get to move on to the top.